Hey, I see that I'm not really Faye Horwit, not today. Uh, so I'm going to
I,
rename myself.
I was wondering.
I think we share some calendars. So I'm not sure if I just copied her login information or went to her calendar by mistake. So
Yeah, I have like a personal Zoom and a work Zoom, and sometimes they get mixed up, but it happens.
yeah, I tried to, let's see, I was trying to do a thing. I was trying to buy a temporary Zoom subscription under my Forward Cities account. And for whatever reason, the screen kept freezing or whatever. So I eventually did, I'm like, I got a month trial
Uh-huh.
with my personal account, but I'm doing meetings for Forward City. So I'm like, well, so anyway, it'll all shake out.
Yeah. It's chilly today.
Wait a second. I see some balloons in the background there. Was there a big party last night?
It was my birthday on Saturday.
Oh, well. Welcome, Sheena.
Hi.
Hi.
Take a minute or two for folks to kind of, come on in. So that's good. Let's see. I am updating the doc. I'll put the link to the agenda, etc., in the chat. And let's see. I think I may end up being mostly like like a chat and document person on this call. Oh, looks like we're getting a crowd. That's nice. Let's see. Hello. So I think we'll probably wait for like another minute or two. I'm gonna find. I put in the document. I put like we have a little icebreaker question. First of all, for the folks who are already here, how many folks have been on these Goal 1 calls or any of the ESHIP calls so far? I could do it as a poll.
Eric, I can also help scribe in some notes if you need some help.
Oh, well, that sounds good. Let's see. Well, in the interest of time, why don't I tell you what, why don't I will kick off with our icebreaker, which I just put in the chat. Let's see, and basically, so just to explain a little bit about why we do these kinds of things. One of the things, especially now, is where, depending on our roles in our community and the things that are going on in our own families and communities as well, we're dealing with so many different, traumas and just a lot of different things going on. So one of the things that we've always done for these different chats as far as ESHIP is we want to do an authentic check-in with folks and just kind of see, where their heads at, but also starting to build the relationships among the folks who are participating in this work, doing the work of ecosystem builders. So that's one reason why we do kind of a check-in. And we also do it as a popcorn, and that's sort of, it's strange, but it seems to work, where by picking somebody else after you're done, whether you know them or not, picking somebody else, it starts to build those little tiny bonds, and we start exercising kind of the fabric that really builds to a stronger, healthier network. So the question, oh sweet, we got Hassan in too. We've got an icebreaker question on the, actually I'll do it this way. We've got an icebreaker question that's in the chat, and I'll read it out to you, which is, what's a tool or resource or a coping mechanism, something that you've been using to deal with this situation? define as broadly or as narrowly as you like. Who would like to take that on and say something?
Sure, I'll jump in. So I think something we've been noticing is that, at least for me, is that the line between personal and professional have kind of been blurred due to we've just been having changes everywhere in the workplace and at home. So this is a pretty obvious one, but Zoom has been like really incredible to catch up, not just for work relationships and professional stuff, but also with my family and friends. Um, and I think they're continuously updating to provide just more just real life features, and I think that's super cool. Um, with that, I'll popcorn over to Sheena. Would you like to go if you're not busy?
Sure. Well, that's an evolving term. This is Ellison. So I think playtime has been something that I've really embraced, because I'm educating my two kids while working full time and trying to provide resources to the community. So I realized that me taking the break to actually play and do something silly, which is a bit out of my normal routine, actually brings great inspiration, and you know, kind of lets go of some of the things that you hear. Because I personally, in this role in a community, I hear a lot of the negative stories. I hear a lot of personal impact by business owners, and sometimes that weighs. And so just playing, taking a walk, doing, you know, something silly helps release that, and then I find solutions to help, instead of just replaying all of the negative stories in my head. So I will popcorn to Tiffany.
It's not like an official resource, but I have been using the word permission a lot. Like, I give myself permission to not do something, or I give myself permission to let something go. So like this week, I'm giving myself permission to not feel guilty for letting my kids watch way more screen time than I would prefer. I'm giving myself permission to not do my hair because it gives me like stress to do that. And so anything to relieve that stress, I'm embracing. And so, you know, just choosing to acknowledge that this does not have to be a time where, you know, I'm type A. Like, it's an okay time to just do what needs to be done to get through the day. So that's been working for me. How is it, Leva or is it Liva?
My name is Liva.
Leva.
If you were to pronounce it in Danish, I've lived in several countries. It's always pronounced differently. So that's okay. I guess my tool has been prioritize. I had, before this whole situation started, I had a lot on my table, and even though it feels chaotic and crazy and stressful to be in this situation, it also forced me to prioritize in what is the most important thing to succeed with. And then all of the less important things were swift aside, which also gave me a focus to actually complete and succeed more with that one thing, instead of constantly multitasking, which I've been doing a lot in my work. And then be with, as in be with my kids, be with my own, be with family members frustrated of technologies or health or what may not be with what is. Yeah. And I'll popcorn over to Hassan.
Hi, everyone. So I think probably the thing that's helped me cope through all of this is actually taking breaks throughout the day. And I think that's easier being at home because you can walk away. Um, but I think more than anything, I'm probably taking a lot of breaks through the day, not extended breaks, but just stepping away and just focusing on something completely different than the work for even if it's just for a few minutes. I think one of the challenges with working from home is that um, there's no clear separation between work and home, and 8-hour workday can turn into a 10-hour workday. You know, you can end up starting at 5:30 in the morning, and then you find at 6:30 in the evening you're still answering emails, and 7 o'clock you're still doing things. So there isn't. I think it's important to set like clear boundaries for yourself, even though you're at home, especially if you have family and you have children at home. It's important to set aside time for them. And I will popcorn over to Katie.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Katie.
I'm talking to ESHIP champions more than I am any other single group right now because of the number of calls that we have. But that's good because we're always looking for solutions. I'm really settling in to what's going on now, and really looking forward to when this is all over. And that's what I'm trying to stay focused on. I had the pleasure of completing a proposal to get some funding for an emergency grant fund for some of our clients here, and got my fingers crossed that'll come through in the next couple of days. And it will be for people who need really small sums of money, more the Main Street mom and pop businesses. You know, we're going to give out awards of between $500 and $3,000 because people who need more money than that, they can be served by some of those other programs. So it's kind of where I am now, looking hopeful and trying to stay focused on the future. And I will send it over to your assistant. You're on mute. I want to hear from your assistant on what she thinks about all this, Sheena.
Yes, your teammate over there.
Ellie, can you say hi? It's a lot.
Yeah.
She's been on a few calls today.
And she can still stand it. That's a great sign.
She's hanging in there, even though I forgot to feed them lunch. Got a little late today. Katie, I already went. So.
Oh, you did? Okay, so I was late. I didn't realize
Sorry.
that. Let's see. Tiffany, have you gone?
I have.
Well, you guys didn't take long today, did you? Who hasn't gone? Raise your hand.
I'm looking in the,
Oh, Lashana, okay. Is that Lashana?
Yes, that's correct. My first time here, but I'm wearing multiple hats. I'm the chair of my neighborhood association, as well as the director of the St. Louis Equity and Entrepreneurship Collective, and a bevy of other things and other titles that I have. But one of the things that I've been doing since the pandemic hit, especially in the St. Louis area pretty hard. Oh, hi, there's an extra there. I've been kind of keeping in contact. I actually reached out to some friends that I've met through different work scenarios. One woman literally just came out with a book, and she was in the middle of doing her book tour this year. So I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, how's it going? You're in NYC, what's going on there? And I reached out to a friend in Spain. So for the most part, us getting a chance to kind of talk to each other, even though it's about this thing, was kind of more of a connecting portion for us. So we got a chance to kind of catch up on how each other is doing, slow down a little bit in our lives as far as traveling, and then be able to kind of motivate each other in a different way. So it's actually been very good and therapeutic. I think people are starting to kind of like doing that. So I'll get text messages every now and then, and I'm like, hey, you know, what's going on today? What show are you watching? And I know everybody's talking about Tiger King, which I haven't started. So
Oh, you gotta watch that. Oh my God.
anybody that hasn't gone?
I might be the only person left. I'm
Are
not
you the
totally,
last one, Eric?
there's also Cecilia. I see her down there. But I'll chime in. So we've got the thing in the chat. That's great. And actually, mine might be a little bit similar, which is the thing that I don't typically use is I don't necessarily use my phone for a lot of calls. You know, it's like, you know, calling a plumber or something else. So this is the first time in a long time that I've used it for just kind of checking in on friends and other folks and just like, you know, wanting to hear somebody else's voice without any particular agenda besides you seeing, you know, that they're doing well, hopefully, or, you know, just kind of, you know, touching base. So that's mine. I will popcorn to Miss Cecilia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for getting this started before I rolled on. For those of you who have questions about the ESHIP Summit, we are likely postponing, and there'll be an announcement. So that's the call I was on. We'll announce soon, I promise. So if you're holding end of June dates, not so much probably. What have I been using to deal with the situation and cope? Probably like a lot of you, more Zoom time with friends. So, so my high school class has a virtual happy hour. The ESHIP community, if you're on Facebook, or I'll put it in the Slack, has a virtual community hour. We want to also be mindful of the people who don't necessarily have happy hour or drink alcohol, or there are people joining us from all over the world. So a little bit not for us in high school. We knew each other before we were able to drink legally anyway. So there's that. So we're just virtually happy. I laid out, I don't know if I can show this without showing you my messy house. I have a virtual like workout thing, a real life workout thing now. I have no excuse not to work out. So I have the big medicine ball, a yoga mat on my floor because I need to stretch because I'm sitting in this dang chair a lot. And then I bought an indoor bike stand so that I could take the bike that was sitting there gathering cobwebs and put it out on a bike stand and pedal around. So it makes me, I don't pedal long, but it gives me the feeling like I'm actually working out. So, and when you mentioned Tiger King, Lashana, you saw the two people who live in Oklahoma just, you know, face palm because it's all we keep hearing about, and that's not the Oklahoma that we live in. So I have a love-hate relationship with this state, but that's something else. So so thank you all, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I know that the ESHIP champions have been working really hard about putting together something mindful. One of the things that I wanted to let you know, in case you're not aware, is if you host Zoom calls, you can actually go into your advanced settings and turn on closed caption, so that if anybody on your call has hearing challenges, that you're able to turn it on, so whatever mechanisms they have will be able to follow along. So I just want to bring some awareness to that because I wouldn't have thought about it otherwise. And so there you go. All right, whoever's leading, I will turn it back over to you.
Well, I'll take it. right now for this moment. And that was a perfect segue, Cecilia, really to the meat and bulk of the call today. We're going to talk about ways that we as ecosystem builders have had to innovate and adapt to reach the changing needs of the people that we serve and that we work with and in our communities. And so I love that discovery of how just turning on closed caption, you know, is something that we don't think about and until we talk to someone who needs it. It's like, oh yes, why haven't I had that on this whole time? And I think that's really great. So I can share, you know, from my world over here, for those I haven't had the privilege to meet yet, I primarily work with rural entrepreneurs. I live in a smallish town. I think Dia might be in a smaller town than me though. Yes, but we have about 26,000 in our town. And so we've really been struggling with how do we reach people who either don't have access to the internet or don't have reliable internet or just don't have the capacity to go on to Facebook and look at our organization's posts as we're throwing out all these resources to them. There's a whole slew of people that we're not hitting, and it's a little I know as a service provider it's kind of overwhelming for me and sad because I want people to receive all of the resources. So one way that we have tried to mitigate that is partnered with a local, as well as for us it's the Boys and Girls Club, but a local group who's providing meals for kids and families. And we've been printing like sheets, like hard copy papers to give to Boys and Girls Club to stick in those lunch sacks, which, you know, with everything changing, like every single day, I feel like every day there's a new loan with new guidelines or new parameters. Like that's challenging too, to stay on top of something when you're using print collateral. But so that's one way that my organization has tried, or I guess has had to adjust. And so we really want to hear from you guys. What changes have you had to make? Or what ways are you innovating to really reach all of the different people that you are hoping to reach?
I can go. One of the things that we did as a collective, I am one of those annoying bosses that's like, I'm going to text message you. I have this idea. So this is a good thing I only have one staff member. So I texted her and I was like, hey, I just heard about, you know, all of these smaller businesses because our focus is on women-owned and people of color-owned businesses. So, or, you know, entrepreneurs, very early stage. And I said, you know, a lot of these people don't know about virtual meetings. They don't know about the Zooms or any of the Google Cloud storage or anything like that. And I've been kind of passing that information on one by one. What if we got together a Google Doc and we just kind of had it rotating with a bunch of different resources? A lot of organizations and a lot of software companies were actually being pretty good, and they were giving like deep discounts that you would normally not even have to access some of those features. So we ended up getting a list together within like an hour or two, and went on ahead, put it together, sent it out in the email list, put it out through social media. And people were just kind of responding to it. I went and I clicked in it like maybe a few minutes later, and there were already like 10 to 15 people going through. So it seemed like it was a resource that, even though that's technically not one of our directives, it was something that was needed in that moment because a lot of people weren't used to moving to a remote work state of mind. So having that list and categorizing it and saying, here's video conferencing, here's financial information. So some people don't know about like QuickBooks Online or things like that. So I was just kind of giving them as much information and even like a little dash of what each one of those particular pieces of software would do and how they could use it as a collaborative online tool. And then Uh, once the financial resources started coming out, we actually put together again overnight a list of all of financial resources, did the same thing, made it a rotating Google document, emailed it out, and got it out in social media. So that's kind of what I was say is our triage. My mom worked in the medical field, so a lot of things emergency or triage for me. So we kind of just looked at it and said, what is it that these entrepreneurs need right now? What are they trying to fix? What kind of gaping hole is happening right now in their life that would make us still feel connected to them on a more personal level as well as professional. So we were able to get those things together within a week's time. And we just keep pushing the information out and letting people know that as we get more resources, we'll add more links. But I think a lot of people appreciated that because they saw that we were trying to attack the pain that they were experiencing right at the precipice of it happening.
Hey, that's great. I just in the chat, I just asked if you've got a link or something like that. We'd love to include that or any process or any other kind of document that we could throw into the notes. That would be awesome. Yeah, because it's, I mean, when you saw this all happening, I'm curious because I've seen different communities. Some are like waiting for a leader to do something, and some just roll up their sleeves and make it happen. It sounds like you're more on the roll up your sleeves side. Was there?
Yeah,
What was your
like
thinking at the
literally
beginning?
middle of the
Yeah,
night.
nice. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
I'll go. So we pretty quickly got a website up with resources through the tech council that we've literally only had 2 meetings. So the group is still new. They're still fresh and getting to understand what are we going to do as an organization. And we did the same thing. We got a document out and just said, start sharing content, start sharing ideas. And that was really helpful because that then fed the content that we were able to get up on the website. And at the same time, so my organization, I oversee the tech council, but we're in a combined economic development agency and chamber of commerce. And we're over a 7-county region in Central Florida. So there are a lot of different leaders and there's a lot of different efforts and there's a lot of panic, right? Especially when you look at Orlando, our tourism industry got completely shut down, both from the beach standpoint to the larger institutions that are the largest single point employers in the state. So there's a lot of different panic elements happening. And so we just put a weekly call together on Zoom and got as many of those leaders to just start calling in and talk about what they're doing. And the ripple effect of that is that we've seen now shared resources, right? The increased collaboration. Not everybody's having to recreate the wheel. Not everybody's having to work as hard, but piecing together different elements of what's taking place across the region so that we can work together a bit more cohesively. And they know who to call and roll up resources so that we're able to impact more people. So it's been just the mere fact of communicating helps mitigate some of the fear and then helps, especially some of the smaller organizations, use resources that are available to them that they may not have thought were out there and available and free. And then ultimately now our entrepreneurs, our business owners are getting the right information they need. They have a vehicle to feed us questions. So we started webinars and they're on Zoom and they're easy to set up and quick and people engage very fast on that. And it helps shape the information that we put out for our region.
So I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up is the awareness that all of you are now, this new awareness, right? We only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know until stuff like this crops up. And like Tiffany was mentioning, the idea of putting things into a package that you were distributing is now creating a resource for somebody who might not have thought to ask. right? Sometimes it's a comfortable, or it's a comfort thing, a trust thing, it's vulnerability. It's all of those things that people don't know that they don't know. And if we don't give them the opportunity and the space to be able to voice that, and we don't think to ask, right? Dia shared the other day about picking up the phone and calling, like Eric said. You know, we called. You can actually use your phone to call people. Oh my gosh. But we've forgotten how to do that because there are people out there in this challenge of the digital divide. So I'd love to explore that a little bit. I know, Tiffany, you were talking about the digital divide, and Dia, your broadband access and things. So how you address those challenges, because as the world is going virtually, we're leaving a huge demographic behind.
Sure, I'll jump in a little bit. So we started kind of like a virtual coffee hour with business owners, entrepreneurs, and several of the business service providers were also on there. And it kind of occurred to us that there are this whole group of people who are out there who are not really online. I think several of us mentioned that on the call today. So find an approach on how to reach them. And right now, what we're doing is a list of um, of their phone numbers, emails as well. But in addition to sending emails, we're just picking up the phone and calling them. Even on today's call this morning, we encouraged everyone to just call and ask, and even if we need to walk them through the process of whether it's a simple Zoom call or whatever, or how to get their Facebook online. We also saw several people just kind of volunteer to provide digital services, which was super cool to see. Other than that, rural broadband is definitely an issue. In addition to the digital skills gap, there's also just that people don't have internet. And I'll try to find this article which Matt Dunn with the Center on Rural Innovation just posted, and I think it's a very informative one.
Yeah. I don't think it's just cities though, because Hassan, you were talking about Detroit, right? And what happened there?
Yeah, so Detroit is pretty much disconnected in terms of connectivity in neighborhoods, Wi-Fi connection, broadband connection. There are neighborhoods in Detroit that just are completely off the grid. And a lot of people in those neighborhoods, even folks who run their own business, whether they have a pop-up business that's popping up at markets or at pop-up locations throughout the city, now that they have to work from home and they don't have connectivity at home, I mean, you don't have access to any of the applications for aid that are out there. You don't have access to information. If you want to work from home, you don't have access to work from home. And this is, I think, this crisis is just, I mean, we've been talking about the digital divide in Detroit for a few years now as a major issue. And I think this has just brought it even more to the forefront. And I know some of the providers like Comcast have been rolling out different plans, affordable plans. But if there's no infrastructure in parts of the cities, it doesn't matter if you roll out an affordable plan because there's just no infrastructure to hop on. And I think it's, I mean, for me, it's just not a connectivity issue. That's an equity issue, and it's an inclusion issue. And I know we've talked about this on other calls in the past about systems being designed to work for certain people, and this isn't by happenstance. I think it's just the way things have been designed, and there is an opportunity here to look at things from a systems perspective, and how do we, as we come out of this crisis, like how do we address these things? And I think it's something that we all need to be talking about, because there are people that are just completely off the grid right now. I mean, I'm fortunate enough, and we're all fortunate enough to be sitting at home connected to each other via Zoom, but there are people that just don't have this luxury.
That's great. And I think it gets to, well, I'll just say the sort of the purpose of this group, the purpose of these calls, that some of the different goal groups that kind of, they navigate and they take on different aspects of the question. But one of the things that we've talked about as organizers and talked about with Cecilia is that the topic of inclusive field means so much to so many different kinds of folks. And I think one of the, I don't know, silver lining maybe, I don't know, one of the things about this current crisis is that it really brings to the fore some of the systemic problems that are already in our society, and especially these kinds of issues of access. And, you know, there are plenty of groups that are being very well served by government at different levels. And they're, in many cases, they're already able to ride this kind of stuff out. You know, but how are we working in our roles and as a network to create the conditions where all entrepreneurs have an opportunity to participate in an authentic and equitable way? So anyway, that's my 2 cents on part of the topic, but I like that we're going here. Thanks.
Well, if I were to take the word for a second, I'm sitting in Copenhagen, for those who are new in Denmark, and we are a rather small country, 5 million people. That's it in the whole country. So here in Copenhagen, things are locked down. All restaurants, cafes, etc. Everyone's working from home. It's a little bit like many other places on the planet at the moment. And I guess some of the first things, what we talked about last time was this question we had been working with. If we unintentionally design for inequality, how do we intentionally design for equality? And we had been working a lot with this on gender and entrepreneurship, but suddenly with the virus, it became this magnifying glass of any inequality in society. Because we in Denmark, we have a tax system that systemically provide a safety net. That's the story. And we do have that for everyone who's employed. We have an amazing safety net to catch for unemployment, so that you don't have to leave home and houses immediately. But suddenly with this virus in the grand scale, it became extremely visible how economically vulnerable you are as an entrepreneur. So those that are self-employed, those that are startups, those that have just started a business and are yet not have the cash flow to sustain a business in tough times, it became extremely visible how our safe society was only safe for one part of society, whereas everyone that were self-employed entrepreneurs were not at the same time, same way supported by our system. So back to the system thinking. So when all of this happened, I got all these stories from all these entrepreneurs, like what they were dealing with. And we had on the Sunday before the Thursday where everything, Denmark closed down, we had a meeting with our minister of, it was the International Women's Day. And we had a meeting with our minister of economics and finance and businesses we were to write him a letter how to support more women to start and scale their own business. And we had a direct line to the minister. So that was on Sunday. On Thursday, Denmark totally shut down. So the whole agenda of gender was kind of off the table for a second. And we were like, what to do? what are we doing now? How can we use this extreme open line straight to the minister on addressing, no matter what gender you have, the issue, the financial issue of people being left with no income whatsoever from one day to another. People having orders canceled from hundreds and thousands of dollars, or a whole year, their whole booking of the rest of the year was simply canceled. So we've been using all of these open doors that we created for another reason, to push politicians to point out the inequality in terms of the safety net of Denmark. And there are now help packages for almost all sorts of people now, also self-employed, and also startups, and also the small business owners that would otherwise not be compensated in tough times. So we have been basically not doing any virtual cafes. We're simply using all the knowledge we've had built up until now, and only push politicians. Only push politicians. That's what we've been doing to create awareness of the inequality in our work field in Denmark, and that our safety net and our system is not as safe as we would like to believe in this so-called equal country, which we are compared to many other countries. But that's what we've been spending our time on, pushing for politicians.
I think that's a really important point to be able to talk to the people who make those decisions on a system-wide level. But I think that it's not just the politicians, right? There are the major stakeholders, the people, the power dynamics in your community, whoever that is. One of the reasons that the Kauffman Foundation hosts a mayor's summit, a mayor's conference on entrepreneurship, is because the foundation sees that the mayor is the highest level of city official in charge of a community that you can still actually address, right? Chances are that you're like 1 or 2 degrees away from the mayor, whereas when you get any higher than that, there's not any kind of opportunity to be able to engage. So the past couple of years, the foundation has intentionally overlapped the Mayor's Conference for Entrepreneurship along with the ESHIP Summit. So there's collisions and serendipity. And if we can catalyze that, that's great. But also the people who have the attention of the local mayor, chamber, stakeholder, whatnot, those are also limited. So I know Katie has a lot of engagement with a lot of different people in her circles, and so Katie, how do you connect with somebody and share a point of view when it's so totally foreign? Because everybody has a diversity story of some kind, but then to get somebody to sit down long enough to listen to something that doesn't even, like, it's so outside of their purview and their perspective, how do you do that?
I think that one of the things that helps is to start with some area of commonality and connect the two. Unfortunately for us, in a lot of our small towns, who feel like they've been left out of the conversation, because we've got one big town in our county, which is also the state capital, and all the resources seem to go there. So anytime you're talking to any of those other mayors or those organizations in those smaller towns, they're just happy to have the attention. So we start with, you know, something that we have in common that we care about. And once we start from there, then they're open to discussing more things. I was telling Cecilia, when I was at ESHIP in 2018, which is my first and only time going, and I can't wait to get there this year, so please make it happen. I was dismayed to find out that we have 12 municipalities in our county. That means 12 mayors, and not a single one had come to the mayor's conference. And what I found is, you know, you got the town manager he's doing a job and count the numbers. But so much of what we have to do as ESHIP champions is cultural shift. I think the money follows the culture and the priorities. And it seems to me that the mayor is in charge of the culture, because the mayor is out there interacting with the citizens and spreading the vision of the town. So we do have the support of almost every mayor where we have a program, and that's helped a lot. So I just really think that I'm looking forward to this year. I think that you're probably going to have one of the biggest ESHIP conferences ever, because I think what's happened now is going to wake a lot of people up to the need for some of this grassroots economic development, focusing on the small businesses that make the communities work.
One of the things that I'll share, not officially, but now it's going to be on this video call that I'm going to upload for those of you who will be watching and those of you who are here. Some of the conversations that we've had around the planning and the design of the upcoming ESHIP Summit in whatever iteration it will end up taking place. So that's still in progress. And remember, everything is a draft. So what I say may not be solidified, but one of the things that keeps emerging
Off the record.
Off the record. Okay. So we know that entrepreneurship is a community sport, because in a given month, out of 1,000 people in a community, 3 will become entrepreneurs. There's a job for the rest of the 997 people, and that's to support those 3 entrepreneurs so that they can be successful. So we talk about it being a community sport. Everybody has a piece of that success. We also know that ecosystem building is a team sport. Right? You can't create an ecosystem in a vacuum. You cannot build by yourself, no matter how good you are. You have to do it with other people. So one of the things that keeps coming up for us is that the next ESHIP Summit, there will be some form of a delegation that comes from a community. And I don't know if it's a region, if Dia's in Ada, Oklahoma, and nobody else from Ada comes, but a couple of other people from the surrounding areas come, or she's got other people like Evan and me and, you know, whoever else that's been at the summit, and we all live in the same state, that she has other people to work with and to collaborate with and to be able to talk about things with. And so whatever that delegation model is looking like, as we put this thing together, we hope that you will engage the people in your community. And the people in your community aren't always the people with the seat at the table. Maybe you have to build a new table. Maybe the table is in the process of being built, and who are you going to get to bring a hammer and a nail? Sometimes it's the person who is one of the biggest challenges in your community, because nothing will get done without them, right? Because they have a big stake at the, you know, and so think about those people, the ones that you're going to need to engage, and maybe start making some pathways. Think about the people who aren't present and how we can engage them. And you know, one of the things that we focus on around the ESHIP Goals community is that all of this takes building relationships and creating a sense of belonging. And you can't build those relationships and create a sense of belonging by just talking about trust and collaboration. And we keep saying you can't build trust and collaboration without doing the work of building trust and collaboration. To that end, in this virtual world, one of the things, so I watched a webinar. Eric and Hassan were there as well. We talked about building trust in a virtual world, and talked about having everyone's faces on screen, right? Because it's much, the message comes across clearer unless you don't see somebody's face. And then the way the message is shared is very different because you're not talking to like a real person. You just see a name or a picture or whatnot. Then I was on another call that is facilitated by an inclusion and diversity specialist. And one of the things that they said is, be mindful of those people who don't feel comfortable being on camera. How do you engage people by making sure? Some of the things that we do on these calls is that we talk about a question that is not necessarily about solving something or about sharing a work solution or a work thing. It's sometimes something about you, right? So one of the popcorn questions that we've asked in the past is, how do you like your popcorn, right? I get to know a little bit of something about you. We create some kind of relationship and bond. And the reason that we call on each other is so that you get to know each other and you get to build those relationships. And so all the things that we try and do are very intentional in that. Sometimes those things are very exclusive for people who aren't comfortable in those roles. We talk about employee resource groups. ERGs are all the rage. And a couple of years ago, Deloitte, who was cutting edge in employee resource groups, dissolved their employee resource groups. Not because they didn't see the strength in the flocking, we call that, in DEI world, we call that flocking, right? You get to be around people like you, which is great if you're an extrovert, if you're a joiner, if you feel good about being in community. If you're an introvert, if you're shy, if you don't do well or comfortable in an environment where everybody calls on everybody, then it's not for you. The other thing that Deloitte found is that power dynamics still sit with cis white hetero males in their community. Well, I don't know about your ERGs, but cis white hetero males are almost never in employee resource groups. How do you shift a power dynamic when you don't have the people in power at the table to hear what's going on in their communities? So just other perspectives. So the whole point of goal 1 is trying to be mindful about diverse perspectives. And now that, so what are things that you're seeing, sensing, feeling about the virtual world? And maybe we can come up with a short list of things that aren't being addressed in this virtual environment so that we can share it out with the people who may watch this video call afterwards. And we'll try to type that into the agenda, Eric, to see what is it that we're not creating the space for, or what is it that we're not, besides the digital divide, what is it that we're not doing to, and maybe it's a solution to create the digital divide. So I'm just going to throw it out there and we'll try to capture as much of this as we can. And I won't call on you.
So I'm just mindful we have like 6 minutes left, so I don't know that we could totally dive into new topic thing. So I'm not sure.
I have one very short one. Often when you sit and do digital meetings, you rarely have eye contact because you want to look into the eyes of the person that is talking. So right now I'm looking into Eric's eyes, but you are seeing my foreheads, right? So instead of that, try to have a little smiley behind your camera, and then remember to look into the camera, because now I'm looking into your eyes. So that little hack, so instead of looking into the eyes of the humans, so you see my forehead, look into the eyes of the smiley behind your camera. So now we have contact.
I love
That's
that.
a great reminder. Anybody else have like a hack or something that we can do to make these better environments or more effective in terms of engagement?
Well, I haven't tested it out yet, but I did hear that you could do virtual backgrounds in Zoom. So I've seen where some people will do that kind of as a fun thing, and it gets you to connect with that person. For me, I'm looking for a nice picture of Star Trek Next Generation's Enterprise bridge. So then I can at least look like that. And then, you know, I may be able to connect with someone that's like, I also watch Star Trek. And I'm like, great, we're going to have a long conversation after this. But
So,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, so that's going to be very challenging for people with different skin tones like you, me,
Yeah,
Dia,
yeah.
Hassan, because those background screens and green screens, unless you have a green screen, are and just like the AI is created for people with lighter skin.
Yeah, actually, I did a whole entire speech for the Database Association PASS, and part of it was actually an article that came out that talked about how the smart car or the driverless cars are actually using UV technology. And the UV technology is based off the Fitzpatrick scale, which is, for those that wear makeup, they're familiar with how foundation was only like in 6 colors. That 6 colors was based off of the Fitzpatrick scale. But unfortunately, when you use such a small and limited scale to determine whether you're going to avoid hitting something that might be a person, you're going to miss a lot of skin tones in between. And yeah, I'm very familiar with it because I go to wash my hands, and my wife, who you've seen in the background, is white. So sometimes she'll have to like dip her hand in there just so that I can get everything started. But you know, regardless, I'm going to try something new and something different, and maybe I'll find a background that actually goes really well. I know it's a very bright background, so it might work. But yeah, so to find that commonality is something that I think is very important, and that usually kind of gets the conversation started and grows a stronger connection to whoever it is I'm speaking to.
Any other ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's important just let people into our world. I mean, Cecilia's got Bruce Springsteen behind her, so we know a little bit about Bruce. Sheena had one of her children on the screen with her earlier. I was on a call earlier today, and one of the people on the call had her 5-month-old daughter right next to her. I think it just helps us all remember that we're all human, and we're people outside of the role that we're in through our work. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree to what Tiffany said earlier. It's giving permission that it's okay, that we're not maybe as buttoned up as we try to be in a different universe, what it feels like right now. And it's all going to be okay. And if we let down some of those barriers, it gives permission to somebody else who may not have accepted that yet to do it. I mean, the last ESHIP call I got on, I didn't turn my video screen on because it was chaos. My kids were everywhere. I didn't know that it was okay. And, you know, over the course of a few weeks, I've accepted that and given permission that it's okay because other people did. And so I think the more that we can show it is really, there's a ripple effect there.
Well, I'm finally getting used to not worrying about my lipstick or anything like that when I get on a video call. That sometimes I don't even comb my hair, but don't tell anybody.
I can't remember the last time I put makeup on. Oh no, I did. I did on Sunday because I had a call with the entrepreneurs in Algeria. So I thought maybe I should
And you thought
present.
the Algerians really needed makeup.
Algerians really needed to see me with makeup. So I want to share with you that 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Central Time, we're having a virtual community hour. The link I will put in the chat. The link is actually on Facebook. If you're not on the ESHIP beta Facebook page, please request to join. If you're on this call, I will open up the gates and let you in. We try to keep that as a closed community, just so there's no undue solicitation and all kinds of things. But if you can make it, that would be great. And it is community hour. If you feel like it's happy hour time and you want to bring a beverage, feel free. If you're still drinking coffee or tea, bring, just whatever helps. So yes. Anything else from the team? No. And Eric, you look like you want to say something.
I think, Tiffany, did you have something else?
Yes.
Wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone today for being so authentic and transparent. I hate that this is happening to the world, but I do find comfort that it's literally happening to all of us. And so this is a really good opportunity to remember how small the world really is, and to remember, we have friends all over the place. And so I really view all of you guys as friends, and I appreciate everything that you shared. Those were some great tips, and I know that they will be in the notes and the agenda page later. And so with that, thank you and have a great day.
Bye, guys.